The next investment option that we will be looking at is retirement annuities and pension funds. When we're looking at these two different types of investment opportunities, they're in fact two very different investment options, but we lump them together because of the fact that you can only access them once you have retired. And so they're looking at this long-term investment option because you're going to hopefully be working for many, many years, and then you can access either your retirement annuity or your pension fund. The main difference between a retirement annuity and a pension fund is that a retirement annuity is usually done on a personal basis, so from an individual's perspective, whereas a pension fund is usually when you're working for an employer, they will contribute towards these pension funds on behalf of their employees. So what they'll do is they'll pull a bunch of money together from all of the employees, and they will take that lump sum and invest it on behalf of those employees. And so therefore, the more people that contribute towards this pension fund, the more money that goes into it, and therefore the more money can grow. When we're looking at both retirement annuities and pension funds, it's important to note that from a government's perspective, they want to encourage working individuals, so the economically active population, to contribute to these retirement annuities or pension funds. And the reason for that is because the government cannot provide for all citizens in the country to maintain a good standard of living in their old age, so when they are pensioners. And so therefore they encourage people to make these contributions. And so how do they do that? They provide tax relief on these funds and obviously premiums that you pay towards both the pension fund and the retirement annuity. When we're talking about a premium, we're literally talking about a monthly contribution to both of these options. We look at premiums in insurance. So the nice thing with this section or this investment option, you can link with insurance. And a lot of the time there has been paper twos that ask you to determine the link between risk, investments, and insurance. And this is quite a nice one that you can link with insurance, because technically retirement annuities and pension funds are a form of assurance, which I just want you to write that down right now, and we're going to go into what assurance is when we do our next section of insurance. So just write that down for now. Don't worry about trying to explain it. It will all link together when we're looking at insurance. So this is nice for people that are contributing towards their retirement annuities and pension funds to receive this tax relief. And the reason for that is obviously a lot of investments that we use, there are taxes that are imposed on these investments, and so therefore you can't necessarily look at getting out 5,000 Rand. It's obviously 5,000 Rand minus the tax that gets taxed on it. Pretty much every type of income that we get is taxable. Okay, so firstly we're going to be talking about retirement annuities. Now, retirement annuities are there to provide an income to a person when he or she reaches the age of 55. So you can actually take out your retirement annuity at the age of 55, or alternatively, you can actually extend it a little bit longer. And basically what happens is a monthly premium is paid, and then once the retirement annuity gets paid out, it will be paid out in a lump sum with combined monthly income. So that means you get out this lump sum, but it's not going to be all of it, because again, there's certain rules and laws that have been put in place by the government to ensure that you don't spend your entire retirement annuity in, say, the first year of retirement, because again, they don't want you to be dependent on the government. They want you to be self-sufficient, because the government doesn't have enough money to make sure that all of the citizens in the country are taken care of during their retirement years. And so that's why these rules are put in place almost to ensure that they get this lump sum. Maybe they can pay off their house with this lump sum, or whatever the story is, or you can even reinvest this lump sum. Because remember, when you reach retirement, you don't just stop investing then. You can actually continue to invest as you go along. And maybe your focus would be more on monthly returns than capital growth, or whatever the story is. But when you think about your retirement age and how long you're probably going to live for, it is wise to possibly continue to invest in a capital growth. But that again is another argument for another day, because you could argue it 1,000,001 different ways. But when we're talking about a retirement annuity, you get that a lump sum, again, not all of it, and then you get like these monthly incomes that come out. Those monthly incomes that come out to you are, however, taxed, because they are income. So that's when the tax starts. And again, everything you use, but everything you earn gets taxed, everything you purchase gets taxed. And this is why a lot of businesses, and here you can link with, say, our theme, where you could give a strategy to say you're going to encourage pensioners to come purchase with you by having a pensioners day. Because remember, our theme is general retailers, and even though you're a pensioner, you still need to purchase stuff like groceries or clothing or bedding or whatever the story is. And you can actually say that, for example, SPA does, where they have Tuesday's Pensioner Day. So again, this is where you start to look at how can we link with our theme, how can we link with other aspects of what we've learned in business studies. And that's important, not to just know the content in business studies. So the amount of money that gets paid out when the retirement annuity matures, which means it reaches its maturity date, it doesn't grow necessarily anymore, will depend on the period the premiums were paid for and how high those premiums were. So the earlier you start, the more you're going to achieve. And it's nice to actually see that in a graph, which we will show you when we're back in class. Pension funds. What are pension funds, and how do those differ to retirement annuities? So the first thing to note with a pension fund is that it's a fund, and so that means that you contribute towards this fund. You cannot take out this pension fund unless you actually retire. So a lot of the time, if you say leave a business or whatever the story is, that pension fund you can transfer to another pension fund, or you can actually take that and put it into a retirement annuity. So you can't necessarily touch it until you have actually retired. And again, what is a pension fund? So a pension fund, you can actually only join a pension fund through a company that employs you. So some businesses don't have pension fund options, and so therefore you would turn to a retirement annuity or other options. And so what a pension fund is it's basically a lump sum together with all the other employees' contributions to that pension fund, and then that money is managed by an appointed trustee, and they ensure that the assets that are in that fund, so they will then maybe put it into shares, or they'll decide where they want to invest that fund, that money, and they'll hopefully grow that money so that when you retire, you can take out that fund, and you can then either take out a third, and you can then decide to reinvest the 2/3 or whatever the story is. Again, that full amount of money that you take out is taxed. That's when it's taxed, because that's when it's an income. So yeah, so it's important to take note of those aspects and the costs involved and when it's taxed and things like that, because you can then link that with other options, with other investment options, when you decide to possibly give a recommendation as to where a person puts their money. So just looking again at pension funds are usually deducted from your salary. So this links quite nicely with HR, when we do HR just now in the term. So again, write that down, put a little sticky note for yourself, say link with HR, because again, when you're a matric, you've got to see how everything links together and how different aspects can be asked, and maybe in a paper too, or even in a question. So what happens is all the employees belonging to a particular organization or pension fund, they pool their contributions, and they've again got this administrator who is appointed and who basically ensures that the funds grow and that they exceed inflation, which is so important, because otherwise there would be no point in having this investment. And a lot of the time, and you'll see this linked with HR as well, businesses decide to actually contribute as well, but they don't have to do that. So just put a little highlight there for yourself that we will look at this again when we're in HR. Okay, so let's look at risk, and let's see what sort of risk is involved with this, because again, as much as people that, or the pension fund administrator tries to guarantee you that there's going to be a return or whatever the story is, there's always risk involved. And the first risk, and the most important risk, is it depends on where the administrator invests your money, because you don't particularly have a say in where they invest your money. And so what happens is they might decide to invest your money in an industry or in shares or in a unit trust that might not necessarily be the most wise decision, and so therefore you actually don't make any money, and you could get to retirement and have no money because they've made a mistake with where they've invested your money. So it is a lot of the time set on faith that these administrators will properly manage your money and grow your money. Sometimes what happens is pension funds or retirement annuities can help individuals to manage their risk of not having insufficient funds to survive once they retire, and they do this through, again, only allowing you to take out a certain amount of money a month, because what's happened over the years is people have gotten this lump sum, and again, they've gone out, they're like, wow, I've suddenly got 12 million rand, I'm going to go buy a massive house, and I'm going to go buy cars, and it gets to 3 years' time, and they've got no monthly income. So they manage it by giving you a lump sum, as well as limiting how much you can take every month. And that's, again, a nice way in which people protect others. Right, so both retirement annuities and pension funds are tools to make provision for an income when the employee stops working and goes on a pension. And so what that means is it allows that person to still have a monthly income, buy groceries every month, buy toiletries, pay for rent if they're renting, pay for water, pay for electricity, all the necessities that they need in order to survive. And the sad reality is that majority of people actually can't do that month-to-month living when they retire, because either their pension fund hasn't earned enough money, or they don't have a pension, they never did a pension, or they started too late with their retirement annuities, or they took out their retirement annuity 10 years before they actually retired. So at the age of 55, they took out the retirement annuity and they were using that alongside their salary. And so a lot of these different factors can play a role. And then what happens is it leads to people actually not maintaining that standard of living that they had when they were earning a salary. And so this is why in your reports or in your recommendations, it's nice to say, yes, put your money in a retirement annuity, contribute towards a pension fund, but also split your money by diversifying and putting money, say, into a unit trust or into fixed property and you rent it out or something like that, in order to also get some sort of passive income or additional income on top of that. Okay, so a lot of the time, like we said, people might not necessarily have the money that they need when they retire to feel financially secure. And so there's many reasons for this, and we'll go through some of those reasons. But the first one to take note of is people start too late. So they start only investing at the age of 30 or 40, because they realize, hang on, retirement is actually getting closer than we thought, or they maybe only started earning a proper income and they feel like that's when they can only only invest. And the actual case is you should start at the age of 20 or even 18, putting away a little bit every month. And then obviously the more you earn, the more you can put away into your retirement annuity or into your pension fund. And so this allows you to build money, because again, you've got that long-term time frame, and the longer the time frame, the idea is that you've got more years to recuperate any losses that have been made, and so you should ultimately have a bigger return. And so again, people wait too long to invest, and that's a very scary reality, especially as people are not finding jobs straight after university or straight after school, and so therefore they are struggling to make those contributions because they're living paycheck to paycheck. Another thing to take note of is the fact that people are living longer. So with the retirement age being 65, technically, majority of industries, it's 65, you're actually living a lot longer than that. So you're probably living at least 25 years after that, at least. And with medicine getting better and better, and, a lot more opportunity to go to doctors and get better healthcare, etc. Because again, the technology behind that industry has grown. Generally, people are living longer, and they're saying that a lot of people are going to live to 100. Now, if you were to do the maths, that means that you're no longer living to, say, 80, you're now living an extra 20 years. And so therefore that's an extra 20 years you have to supply money to live. And so what's happening is the money runs out, and then there's no way in which you can actually live off that money. And so you're reliant on other people or the government. And so then again, your standard of living that you're used to is reduced, and it can be quite a depressing reality. Another thing is that there's higher medical costs there's higher medical costs that is involved nowadays, because again, people are living longer, and so that means the longer you live, the more times you're probably going to go to a doctor or hospital, and those all cost money. And your medical aid might increase the older you get, and so therefore you might not have planned for these higher medical costs, and that will come out of your monthly income. Then what happens is a lot of time people change jobs, and so when they do that, the pension that has been built up from the previous job might get paid out, and unless you immediately reinvest that, then you're actually probably going to spend it on luxuries. Like you might decide, oh, I might take this money and go on an overseas holiday. And so what happens is, and this happens a lot, people then spend that money that they've worked 10 years to accumulate on an overseas holiday because they've suddenly got this money and they can spend it, or they decide to spend it on debt, like paying off loans or paying off credit cards and things like that. And so again, they then don't reinvest it, and they don't grow that fund anymore. Let's have a look at the next aspect, which is obviously return on investment. Now, your return on investment will actually be determined by how prudent the investment manager is. So have they made wise decisions? Have they fully investigated, researched the correct channels in which they should invest, and where they should invest, and how much they should invest? And so therefore, again, there's no guarantees. As much as they would love to guarantee it to you, there is no guarantee that this return is going to be high or even beat inflation. And so again, it works off of this trust. And even though you've put your money somewhere and you said, okay, the pension fund is there and the retirement annuity is there, it's important for you as an individual to manage that as well, and to just every now and again look at where your money is going. Ask the fund administrator, where's my money going? Why is it going there? Things like that. Again, your return will be the lump sum that you get out, as well as your monthly incomes when you retire. But it's important that there is also admin fees and management fees involved in these, because someone else is managing it, someone else's needs to get paid for that job that they're doing, because that's actually their job. To manage this fund for you, and so therefore that's also going to reduce your return. Let's have a look at the last aspect, which is time. So what is our time frame for this? Obviously, again, it depends on the number of years that you have contributed, and that will determine the time frame. This is generally looking at a long-term time frame because of the fact that you're going to want to start early and you're going to get it, say, at 65. But what happens, like we said, some people reach the age of 40, 45, and they decide, oh dear, I need to invest in a retirement annuity, and then it's not going to be as long term as if you started when you were 25 or 20. And so again, the time frame really just depends on the person and when they start this investment option. So there's some nice videos here that we can look at. This first one is what is annuity, and this guy literally just talks a little bit about what's annuity, what do we mean by it, etc. And then this one over here is what is a pension, and it's nice because it's from a South African perspective. I do just want you to take note that he does start to bring in different terms like umbrella and things like that, and I want you to just not necessarily take note of that because you don't need to know that much detail, but just have a look at the overall, and sort of the first few minutes of it is very important of this video, so have a look at that. And that brings us to the end of what retirement annuities and pension funds are, and sort of where you can link them with other aspects of your business studies content. And the next one that we'll be looking at is endowments.